no deal now the government's central planning assumption?
The government's priority is to secure a deal. That hasn't changed. But alongside that, as part of our continuation of preparing for no deal, a responsible government needs to ensure that we are ready for that default option, which we don't want to happen, but we're ready in the event that it did happen. That's why at Cabinet today we agreed that preparing for no deal will be an operational priority within government, but our overall priority remains to secure a deal.
And what will that operational priority look like? Are we talking about COBRA meetings week in, week out to deal with what could be a national crisis?
Well, we have already seen an increase in communication from government, so for example to pharmaceutical firms, for example to EU citizens living within the UK, but we will see that tempo increase in the coming weeks. We need to get over to business that this is something they have to prepare for. This is a matter of 14 weeks until we leave the European Union, and so having a key focus on this both within government but also to the third parties, the business communities, as part of their preparations for exit day.
So should it be businesses' operational priority as well, and if so, what should they be doing?
We're sending a clear message that this needs to be much more of a priority for businesses up and down the country. The government's priority remains to secure a deal, but we need to recognise with 14 weeks to go that a responsible government is preparing for the eventuality that we leave without a deal. That is the responsible thing for the government to do. That is what we agreed at Cabinet, and over the coming weeks you will see a significant increase in the communications to businesses to ensure that the technical notices that we put out in the summer, the notices we have put out since, actually get the traction with the business community that we need to see so that they are planning in the event that no deal were to occur.
Isn't this irresponsible brinkmanship, though, because there is no majority in the House of Commons for no deal? There are clear intentions on behalf of MPs to block no deal. We saw that in Dominic Grieve's programme motion at the start of the meaningful vote debate. This is the government walking MPs to the cliff and saying they can only vote for a deal that they hate or an alternative. Isn't this really irresponsible?
It's not enough for Parliament simply to say what it doesn't want. There has to be an agreed position to move forward. And so there are a number of scenarios being floated in government without, I think, people really engaging on the consequences of that. Either the consequence to our democracy of not delivering on the referendum, not having Brexit, or the idea that we can cherry pick and have some sort of managed no deal where the EU would suspend its own red lines, which I don't think is feasible. So it's responsible of government to prepare for the event of no deal, but our priority remains to secure a deal because that is the best way of both delivering on the referendum result, but doing so in a way that protects jobs, ensures the flow of goods over the border. So we need to secure a deal. That is in the national interest. That is what the Prime Minister is working day and night to deliver. But a responsible government should continue the no deal preparation that we have been doing to date, but ensure that that communication to government is to businesses is clear, so that they step up their own preparation when we are just a matter of 14 weeks away from leaving.
But unless you are saying that when the vote resumes or the debate resumes, that Dominic Grieve's amendment is somehow, or his motion is now being discarded, this is all meaningless, because we will either have a situation where Theresa May's deal is passed, or we will have a situation where Parliament exerts its decision. And no deal is never going to be accepted in that scenario, unless you're saying that Dominic Grieve's motion is now no longer effective.
But the other deals that are being put forward by parliamentarians, what is often referred to as Norway or Norway Plus or even Canada, all of those deals require a backstop, the very issue that many people in Parliament say they're not prepared to support. So the reality is that there is no consensus in Parliament for any of the options being put forward. It's therefore not enough for a responsible government just to say there is a default where Parliament doesn't support any options. The default option in the event of no other option is no deal. Now, that's not our intention. Our intention is to secure the deal. But as part of our contingency planning, with 14 weeks to go before we leave the EU, the responsible thing for the government to do is to prepare for that default action whilst maintaining our strong commitment, which is to our priority, which is to secure the deal the Prime Minister has agreed with the European Union, which is the way of protecting the jobs of your viewers, the jobs of businesses up and down the country.
But you are spending public money, putting pressure on the NHS, forcing it to make these contingency measures for something which Parliament will likely block. Yes, Parliament may need to decide where the majority is for another alternative, but there is, at the moment, as things stand, very little likelihood that Parliament will simply step back and allow no deal to take place, even if it's the legal default. So isn't this an enormous waste of public money and massively undermining confidence of British business in this country?
Well, the way to avoid the cost associated with no deal is to back the deal, is to back the Prime Minister's deal.
So
that is the way to secure the jobs, the businesses, the flow of goods. That is the way to do it, through backing the deal. So it is for those MPs who are refusing to back the deal, need to answer, what is it that there is a consensus in Parliament for, and what is there a consensus that is deliverable with the European Union? The European Union made clear that any deal requires a backstop. That is one of their red lines. And so Parliament needs to back the deal, because the consequence of not doing so is we risk the default of no deal, and a responsible government must prepare for that eventuality. That is what we agreed at Cabinet. That is what we're going to do.